Welcome, everyone. Good evening, and thank you for joining us tonight. My name is Alethia O'Hara Stephenson. Before we get into tonight's event, I'd like to do some housekeeping. If you're not speaking, I ask you to kindly keep your screens muted, your phone or your computer. We will have time for a Q&A towards the end of the session around the 8:10 mark. So at that time, you can submit your questions in the chat, or you can use the raise hand feature to ask your questions. At this time, I'd like to start off with our land acknowledgement. We would like to acknowledge the traditional territory of the Anishinaabe, including the Ojibwe, Potawatomi, and Chippewa, and the people of the Three Fires Confederacy. We would like to also do an ancestral acknowledgement. We honor our ancestors of African descent who are intrinsically linked to the land, who fought for our survival and helped to shape the mosaic of Dufferin County in Canada. We honor those leaders such as William and Mary Gaunt, Richard Pierpoint, the Hannison family, those who are unknown, and the current leaders who continue to shape our community. We do have greetings from our MP, Kyle Seaback, and I'll just take a few moments to read that before I introduce our MPP. To the Dufferin County Canadian Black Association, Deputy Mayor Steve Anderson, Senator Wanda Thomas Bernard, Town of Shelburne's Diversity and Inclusion Committee, and the Shelburne Public Library. Congratulations to all of you on bringing the virtual Emancipation Day panel discussion event to our community. This is an important opportunity for the residents of Dufferin Caledon to learn, reflect, and engage on Canada's road to emancipation for Black and Indigenous peoples, and the work still required to stem racism and discrimination. It's also important that we use this time to celebrate the countless achievements and contributions of Black Canadians to our community and country. I am proud that I was part of the 43rd Parliament that unanimously voted on March 24th, 2021 to officially designate August 1st as Emancipation Day across Canada. The date is symbolic as it represents the actual day the Slavery Abolition Act of 1833 took effect on August 1st, 1834. Now, more than 185 years later, Canadians from coast to coast come together on August 1st to remember and contemplate the fact that Black and Indigenous peoples were once enslaved on the land we now call Canada. It was a long and arduous path leading to emancipation. Those who led the fight against enslavement were instrumental in building the diverse and vibrant country we enjoy today. We each have a responsibility to honor those who fought incredibly hard against slavery and to recognize the horrendous harms it caused to thousands. But we also owe it to them to continue the ongoing work of firmly standing against all forms of racism and discrimination. Sadly, we all know many injustices and prejudices still exist. However, Emancipation Day and events like this one today help us reaffirm our shared commitment to continue building an equitable and inclusive society where everyone feels respected and safe. On behalf of the residents of Dufferin Caledon, thank you to each of you for your role you've played in hosting today's panel. Our community appreciates the considerable work you're doing to ensure the heritage of people of African descent in Canada is recognized, and that the contributions Black communities in Canada have made and continue to make are celebrated. At this time, I would like to invite our MPP, the Honorable Sylvia Jones, to bring greetings.
Thank you, Alethia. It's a real pleasure to be able to join you, even though it is virtually, but it does give me in particular a break to focus on something different for the evening. So I appreciate that. The work that the Dufferin County Canadian Black Association has been incredible, considering how recently you were formed and how active you've been in the community, and frankly, in a very large part during COVID when we couldn't meet in person. So kudos to you, your team, organization members who have stepped up and done this. The panel discussion tonight, I think, will be very enlightening, partially because I think many of us want to know and learn more about our Black forefathers who opened businesses, who farmed the land, and who raised their family, frankly, in Dufferin County. And I think some of that history needs to be amplified and shared more often. So thank you again for your work, collaborating with many other organizations, not the least of which, of course, is the Museum of Dufferin, and look forward to tonight's presentation and panel.
Excellent, thank you. And OPP Anton Jalic, please welcome to the stage, the virtual stage.
Well, thank you very much. Thank you to the Dufferin County Canadian Black Association for the invitation to share this moment with all of you. In particular, I'd like to thank President Alethia O'Hara Stephenson. Emancipation Day formally recognizes that on August the 1st, 1834, Britain's Parliament abolished slavery in the British Empire. This is the second year we recognize this important date for all people, in particular, those that sacrificed everything in order to pave the path forward to end anti-Black racism and discrimination. When Canada's House of Commons unanimously voted to mark August the 1st for Emancipation Day in March of last year, it came during the same time that United Nations proclaimed this decade dedicated to the people of African descent, focusing on recognition, justice, and development. So I want to thank you for this opportunity to engage so we may reflect and continue the work started so many years ago. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Anton. At this time, I would like to invite our Deputy Mayor, the Deputy Mayor for the Town of Shelburne, Deputy Mayor Steve Bandison, to the stage.
Thank you very much, Alethia, and good evening, everyone. Yeah, let me just take this opportunity to say that I'm very proud of the efforts that have been made in the town of Shelburne and in Dufferin County to bring awareness to Emancipation Day. This gives me the opportunity, and I don't feel ashamed in saying this and doing this, but it gives me an opportunity to shout out the town of Shelburne's diversity and inclusion team. Some of the members, I could see their faces, so thank you for joining this evening. The Shelburne Public Library, there are organizations like the Dufferin County Multicultural Foundation. There are political figures like we just heard from MP Kyle Seaback, Deputy Premier Sylvia Jones, our Mayor Wade Mills, and many other elected officials, and of course, DCCBA, that are all using their platform to bring awareness and education to Emancipation Day. And so let's make no mistake about this, that there is interest in the community to learn. And we just heard some of that with the opening remarks. I had people leading up to this event from all walks of life who were interested in participating in events and wanting to educate themselves on the history of Emancipation Day. So despite the resistance that is often faced in efforts like this, and I know our panel members, will speak to this, the work must continue because knowledge really empowers us all. Not some of us, but all of us. And so what does emancipation mean to me, Steve Anderson, as a person, not just the deputy mayor, but to me as a person? Of course, it means freedom. That's the obvious, and the freedom that we all enjoy today. But while the celebration is important, I've chosen this year to focus on those who have helped to pave the way to allow this celebration, this formal celebration, to happen right here in Canada. And it's sad to say that I think many Canadians, even though we've seen some today express some knowledge, and that's important, but I think it's sad to say that many Canadians are not familiar with the roots and history of Emancipation Day. But thank God that they're willing to learn, and there are individuals that are willing to disseminate that information. And I submit that if we don't take the opportunity to learn, we run the risk of assuming that this formal acknowledgement was always there, and it wasn't. Worse yet, we will take the opportunity to celebrate and educate ourselves for granted, and that can't happen. And as I wrap up my comments, the Bible says for the faith believers that are out there that faith without works is dead. Let me say that again. Faith without works is dead. Celebrating Emancipation Day without understanding the history and the roots of Emancipation Day, I submit to you all, is dead. It is the knowledge and what we do with the knowledge that gives us power. My last remarks. When we truly know what emancipation means and how we got to this point in Canada, and we're going to learn that this evening, we will treat the day and the people with the reverence that is deserved. Thank you. I'll turn it back over to Alethia.
Thank you so much, Deputy Mayor Anderson. We do have a video montage that we have prepared from community members, but before I introduce the video, let me take a moment to recognize the amazing work done by the town of Shelburne. So this year is the second year the town of Shelburne has proclaimed Emancipation Day. Not only that, we were able to partner with the town of Shelburne to have art displayed reflecting Emancipation Day, art curated right here in Dufferin County from local artists under the theme of freedom. These artists were Emily Campbell and Dave August Ellington. These pieces are currently on display in the town of Shelburne. So those of you who are local, I encourage you to visit Town Hall in the next 2 weeks to visit. For those of you who are virtual, you're in for a special treat. We will be showing you a video montage towards the end of the presentation. But for our next topic, we have a video montage of individuals from our community who have shared with us what Emancipation Day means to them and what their hopes and dreams are for the future. So without further delay, here is the video.
I'm Rose Doughton, and on behalf of the Shelburne Public Library, we are honored to partner with the Dufferin County Canadian Black Association on this very special occasion. Public libraries are the guardians of freedoms, of intellectual freedoms, and the library is the hub of the community. And I think that's why it's especially important for us to partner and to recognize Emancipation Day.
What does Emancipation Day mean to me? Emancipation Day is a day that we celebrate the abolishment of slavery. But more importantly, it's a day that nationally we need to acknowledge the existence of slavery in Canadian history. A history that is absent from our history books in school.
It means that the law tells people not to boss Black people around.
Emancipation Day is a very wide topic for me personally, and I guess I'll say the reason I said wide topic is that that's amount of things that it encompasses. Talk about past, present, and what will be the future, what we take from the past, what we use it for in the present, and what we will be in the future, what will be the result of the future of it based on our culture, Black culture itself, and how it deals with all the other cultures within our society.
For me, Emancipation Day means more than just the declaration of the end to slavery. It is first an acknowledgement of the hundreds of years, 500 years to be precise, of the injustice and inequities, inhumanities, of atrocities against Black people, people from African descent. So we may focus on the fact that the government came up with the Emancipation Day to say that's the end to slavery. But I think the most important thing is it's a form of recognition of the atrocities. And then, of course, a legal document that says slavery has ended, although we continue to fight for the quest for balanced representation and for equity around the world.
It's a day that as a country, we challenge racism on both systemic and individual levels. It's a day to educate, but it's also a day to celebrate the accomplishments of Black Canadians, but also to recognize that the wounds of the past still impact us today.
Because Black people get freedom from white people bossing them around.
It's good to recognize it because we have to understand where we came from. So we have to understand what it is that we are atoning for, what we're trying to make good for, and we have to know how we're going to use that, as I said before, in the future to recognize that, this has happened. Let's try not to make it happen again.
This is a topic that should be an forefront in the educational curriculum. Recognizing Emancipation Day is saying we know there are systemic issues. We know they continue to exist. We know they continue to permeate the laws and the judicial system and the health system and the academic system and in all the power blocks around the country. So it's beyond celebration. I say more of recognition and a higher level of awareness for people to understand history. Again, history that is forgotten is bound to repeat itself.
We continue to fight for equity in education, in employment, in housing, just to name a few. There's still much work to do. Emancipation Day is not just one day, but it should serve as a reminder for us that we must continue to call out racism when we see it, continue to challenge the systems riddled with barriers for us in order for us to truly be free.
Beyond this year, we need to recognize that we can't change the past. The past cannot be changed. The past is the past. What was done was done. We have to look forward to making the future better from learning from the past, what was done, and where we have come from and where we're going. And not only for the Black culture, for all cultures to adapt, to be conscious of each other.
We need to start analyzing the data we have spent hundreds of millions of dollars gathering. We need to start analyzing them and we need to start putting in place strategic framework. We need to start inviting people to the table to have a conversation on how truly we can be free. Because as Martin Luther King said, until we are free, no one is free.
You have to love each other and care for each other. Canada is a great country and Shelburne is a great town.
Thank you for watching. That was just a short montage from our community members sharing what Emancipation Day means to them. At this time, I would like to take a moment to acknowledge the partners for this event. Again, this event is made possible in partnership with Senator Wanda Thomas Bernard, the Town of Shelburne's Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion Committee, Deputy Mayor Steve Anderson from the Town of Shelburne, and the Town of Shelburne's Public Library. We were also very fortunate to receive support from the Museum of Dufferin, as well as a Streams Community Hub. So great community coming together again. At this time, it is my honor to introduce an incredible trailblazer, community advocate, youth advocate, economic development and empowerment leader, Gwyneth Chapman. Gwyneth will be our moderator for tonight's event, and she will take you through a wonderful panel discussion with some incredible trailblazers who have made this day possible, individuals who laid the foundation for us to be here today celebrating Emancipation Day. So without further delay, please welcome Gwen Chapman to the stage. The virtual stage is yours, Gwen.
Thank you very much, Alethia. How are you all doing? Oh my goodness. I'm just going to try to be a little bit calm here because I think every day that we're alive, every day that we're able to see each other, greet each other, love, do the work that we all know that we need to do in order to move this society forward. I mean, it's exciting. I'm not sure about you, but I'm happy to be here today. And I'm hoping that all of you are also very happy once again to be with each other. I get a sense that all of us here on this call this evening, we are also very passionate about change, about wanting Canada to be that, you know, beautiful reflection of how we should live, how we can be when we get together as one community, embracing our experiences, our differences, you know, in terms of culture, life experience, our history, et cetera, and pulling it all together to form this beautiful, incredible, dynamic country called Canada. So thank you very much, Alethia and Stephen, for this amazing work. Once again, that you're pulling us together, looking at something that is so very important to all of us, the emancipation of Black slaves. And thank you so very much for all the wonderful MPPs and MPs and all you amazing volunteers to take some time to, you know, to be here with us, to celebrate and to reflect on what this day really means for us. I want to thank Rosemary Sadler. Rosemary is an incredible historian, and she has been the president of the Ontario Black History Society for a number of years. I think it's almost like 20 and beyond. And even before that, Rosemary, you were always a part of the community. And, you know, you led in so many different ways. And you understood early the importance of Black history as it pertains to us in Canada and what we should be doing to move our community and our country forward again. So thank you so very much for being here with us. Thank you very much, Senator Amazing Wanda. You are an incredible inspiration to all of us. And we are so happy that you're making time to be here with us. And the work that you're doing in Halifax for the community is absolutely incredible. It's much appreciated. And it's people like yourself who dedicate your time and put your resources and your love into helping develop our community and looking at those who have been left behind and saying, you know what, I want to make sure that I do my part in order for them to be able to be what they're supposed to be, in order for them to be able to contribute and make that difference within their family, within the community, and within Canada. So thank you so very much for your tireless efforts, your continuous efforts in that work. Thank you so very much. And we have the incredible DeWitt Lee, who I just saw this afternoon celebrating Emancipation Day also in North York. DeWitt, thank you so much for the work that you have done in helping to uplift our community and getting people to realize the impact and the history that we have had as a people, and how it's so important for us to learn from that, to celebrate that, and use that as a motivational factor to keep on dreaming, keep on making the change. So thank you all so very much. And we're just gonna get into this awesome conversation. And Sylvia, I just wanna say hello to you as well. You are always making yourself available. You're almost like City TV, you're everywhere. You know, and I just love the way that you're so passionate about helping communities be recognized, and you're always behind supporting, and it's people and leaders like you also that really make such a great difference. Thank you so very much. Wonderful to see you again. So, you know, all these dynamic key speakers, I guess, or panelists have a tremendous history in Ontario, in Canada, in terms of the work that they've contributed to help make our country better. And all you have to do is Google their names and you'll see their long bio, which is just absolutely incredible. And you know, we want to find out from you today, what does this day mean to you personally? What does this day mean to you? And Rosemary, I'm going to go to you first, because I would like for you, as the force behind making this day happen for Canada, where did that passion and that drive come from to push to make this day recognizable for all Canadians?
Thank you so much, Gwen, for that incredible introduction and for all your energy. But I think, the question is a little bit complicated. It isn't like I just did one thing. I've done a series of things that have built upon each other, and those things built upon what other people had also done. So let me just quickly say that in the process of being appointed to the board of the Ontario Black History Society, in the process of, after a number of years, going to a board meeting early and being nominated the president, I didn't come in with an agenda. But there were certainly many things that were left undone. One of those things was having February as Black History Month properly taken care of by the City of Toronto. So I had to take care of it quickly because we'd all missed the deadline for seeking the petition, the proclamation. When I realized that, I then felt it was critical to move it further and get one from the province. And so with our contact at the province of Ontario, Daniel O'Brien, I got a proclamation for the province of Ontario. I then went to a number of federal members, and ultimately it was with Jean Augustine that it went to the House of Commons. So I initiated that concept with each level of government to make it happen, because I knew that it was important, an important means of affirming our presence in this country. And with the limited resources that the organization had, I had to work with symbols. And the symbol of February as Black History Month, I felt was incredibly powerful. Similarly, at the same time, I was introduced to the concept of having a formal recognition of August 1st as Emancipation Day by a social justice advocate from Trinidad and Tobago. And I could not deny his rationale for why it was important to us. Black History Month is critical, but Emancipation Day speaks to the reality that was so hidden from all of us, even me growing up in this country, even me who was the descendant of people who came into this country on the Underground Railroad, that there had been a 200-year plus experience of the enslavement of First Nations and Africans in this country. So began the process of me seeking official commemoration of August 1st as Emancipation Day with the City of Toronto, Metro Toronto, City of Ottawa. Went to second reading twice in the House, second reading twice with Senator Wanda Thomas Bernard in the Senate, but it also was a unanimous vote. Thank you to the province of Ontario, Ted Arnott, Maria Van Bommel, and Peter Kormos in 2008. It took so many interrupted opportunities, challenges, opposition, so many parliamentary petitions, regular petitions, before we ultimately had the success of it going through in March 2021 through MP Majid Jahari. So it means the culmination of the effort that I put in over more than 2 decades. It means the opportunity for all of us to have a pointed moment, if not more than a pointed moment, to give consideration to the challenges of our complicated history.
Thank you for that background, Rosemary. I wonder if you as well can just touch on the connection between, as we just celebrated Caravana, 55th, I believe it's 55 years of celebrating Caravana in Toronto. Are you able to share with those of us in this conversation the relationship with Caravana as it pertains to emancipation of?
Sure. In terms of Carnival in general, there were, of course, always opportunities for people to see what their slave owners were doing, to imitate what the slave owners were doing and poke fun at them by dressing up and parading around, pretending to be in those positions. But once enslaved people in the Caribbean in particular, but everywhere, were informed that they were free through, in many cases, the British Imperial Act, they then immediately began to rejoice. And part of the rejoicing was spiritual, church. Part of it was dance. Part of it was adopting and reinforcing the whole idea of of Carnival and taking the celebration out into the street because they really didn't have a concert hall to go to. That was the way it was going to happen. So in 1967, to move it way up, there were funds available for the celebration of Canada's special birthday. And people from the African Canadian, the African, and the African Caribbean communities came together, put a grant application in, and were successful at getting money to begin what would be the first formal, huge celebration of Caribana. But it had been celebrated earlier through the efforts of the Canadian Negro Women's Association in the 1950s. But it was called Caribbean Carnival, I believe. And we honored, when I was president of the OBHS, we honored the remaining members of the Canadian Negro Women's Foundation Association who had been part of that. People like Millicent Burgess, Aileen Williams, I think was still alive at the time, and there were a couple of others. So the experience of Carnival or Caribana is directly related to the celebration of August 1st as Emancipation Day. However, the way it happens currently, I think that many people, there's a bit of a disconnect. And so people see the beauty, the pageantry, the costumes, the sacrifice that some people are making for the whole year to have the money to construct, to be part of the mass bands and all of that. And it's lovely and it's a beautiful spectacle, but there is a disconnect because I knew about Caribana and still didn't know that it have a clear sense of how it was connected to emancipation. And just a quick note, when I was beginning my process to have August 1st commemorated, I had never been to an Emancipation Day event. I had to research what might have gone on. I had to vision what it might mean and pull it together from what made the most sense based on what I could find historically in Canada and what was possible with the no resources that I was working with.
Thank you, Rosemary, for that. Thank you for that. I think one of the things that the community is actually working on is to find ways to really promote the history of Caribana, because it does have some relevant importance in our history, our Caribbean history. And so, like you're saying, sometimes it's not too clear on what it's about, how it was formed, why it has evolved to the place that it is right now. But I'm glad that you also pointed that out, because I know that is one of the things that they are actually working on. And again, this is why the history, our history, is so relevant and is so important for us to continue to talk about, to promote, and to embrace. So Senator Wanda, Halifax has a very, very interesting history. And you know what? I'm very interested to find out, what does this day mean to you?
Thank you. Thank you very much. Thank you for inviting me to be on your panel this evening. I join you from my home in East Preston, Nova Scotia, one of the Black Loyalist communities, unceded, unsurrendered territory of the Mi'kmaq people. And grateful to be here. My family's been here since the 1700s. And Nova Scotia has such a rich, rich history. I'm really glad that you started off with Rosemary, because it was really good to situate our conversation in that deep, deep history that she has with Emancipation Day. In Nova Scotia, there was a small group of people who were, pardon me, commemorating Emancipation Day with the laying of a wreath in the harbor at 12 noon on August 1st for a number of years. And it was being done almost with there was no fanfare. There were very, very few people that participated. And it was led by a gentleman originally from Sierra Leone who married a woman from East Preston. And so, deep connections there. He was from Freetown, Sierra Leone. He is from Freetown, Sierra Leone. He was deeply committed and still is. He laid a wreath yesterday as well. So that was my early introduction to Emancipation Day activities in the province, in the country. I was appointed to the Senate as an independent. I was one of the group of, I think there were 22 of us who applied and were appointed to the Senate when the Trudeau government changed the appointments process in 2015. So I was one of 2 senators from Nova Scotia who made it through that very grueling process, I might say. Let me say this very frankly. I was not quite prepared for the level of racism that I would experience in Ottawa, on my travels to and from Ottawa. And although I had been working on issues to address anti-Black racism through my whole career, nothing quite prepared me for what I was experiencing there. And so one of the things that I did to bring attention to anti-Black racism was I introduced an inquiry. So what is an inquiry? An inquiry, any senator can bring forward an inquiry where senators do research on a topic and speak to it. At the time, I think there were only 3 senators of African descent, and they certainly all agreed to speak to the inquiry, but I had to have allies speak to the inquiry as well. And in doing research for the inquiry into anti-Black racism in this country, one of the things that I uncovered through that research was the work that Rosemary Sadler had done in terms of trying to have Emancipation Day nationally recognized. And one of the things that when you bring an inquiry forward in the Senate, one of the things you want to do is to have some sort of action come from that. So the action that came from the inquiry into anti-Black racism was to bring forward a bill to have Emancipation Day nationally recognized. It was called Bill S-255. That bill made it to second reading. That's a whole story in itself. If we get a chance, I'll talk about that. But that bill made it to second reading, and it would have passed had it been allowed to come forward. We had enough votes in the Senate to move it forward. I think we had enough votes in the House of Commons to have it passed there if it had passed through the Senate. But then it ended up dying on the order paper when the next election was called because it wasn't allowed to move forward. And when that happened, I made a decision that I wasn't going to allow that to happen again. That I was not going to bring it forward in the Senate to have it die on the order paper because the forces would not want it to go forward. That's the game that's played. I decided to play the game a little bit differently. And so I made a decision. I had no idea who was going to win that 2019 election. But I made a decision that whoever formed government, that I was going to go to government to ask government to take responsibility for moving this forward. And that's what I did. The Trudeau government came back into power, and I went to the Prime Minister and basically laid out the plan. And he worked with his MPs, and MP Majid Jahari, who you read his letter at the beginning, he stepped up as an ally and said, yes, I will take this forward. And he did a lot of work. He did a lot of research to understand. He did a lot of research to work within the House of Commons with the MPs to get that vote forward, move forward. That motion did move up. That motion was unanimously adopted in March of last year. In the meantime, I was also in touch with my home province, and I was basically saying to Nova Scotia, look, you don't have to wait until this federal recognition. You could also, so I was having these simultaneous conversations. And in April of 2021, Nova Scotia passed legislation to officially mark Emancipation Day. And then I didn't have to, but I introduced a motion in the Senate because I wanted the Senate to also support this motion to have Emancipation Day nationally recognized. And it was unanimously adopted on the day that we rose for summer recess. So that's the journey in terms of my involvement. When I compare that to Rosemary Sadler's 20 years, it feels like a very short distance. So when you think about all of the work that Rosemary and her colleagues did, those who were part of that work, and then all of the work that's happened just in the past couple of years leading up to this, because it was really, that motion started in 2019. It wasn't voted on until 2021. And that's how slowly things move. But we now have Emancipation Day nationally recognized in this country. And I see that as such an important first step. And I keep reiterating that. It's a first step. I remember, if I can have another minute, is that okay?
Yeah, that's fine. Absolutely.
Okay. I remember on the night, and of course I was joining virtually. So I remember on the night that the vote came, and it was very late at night, about 11 o'clock at night. I remember when the vote happened, and many of my colleagues were saying, "Oh, congratulations, you must feel so good," and I didn't. And I'll tell you why I didn't feel so good about the motion. I wanted debate on it. I wanted people to talk about it. I wanted people to engage in discussion about why Emancipation Day is important. The questions you were asking tonight, what does it mean to you? Why is it important? And how do we move forward together? Because the vote came and they just voted, there was no opportunity for dialogue. There's nothing in the records,
right,
that speak to why this is important.
Right.
At this point in our history, I felt robbed of the opportunity to have those conversations. And I feel, we talk about performative allyship. For me, that was a bit of a performance. We're voting on this because we know it's the right thing to do. Why we're doing it, who really knows? So I have mixed feelings about that, but I did accept the vote, mind you, and move forward from there.
Yeah.
I'll stop there.
Yeah, well, thank you very much for sharing, Senator. And I know that there was not that opportunity to speak on it, but you know what, anything is possible. And I do believe that you can create that opportunity to have a great dialogue. Absolutely. And we'll be happy to help you with that if you need our help. So never give up hope. And this is just the beginning. And the fact that this is recognized, I feel that there's so much more. It's opening the doors for many conversations, and also to help push and encourage the understanding and the learning of history, and using that again as a motivational factor to inspire us to do more, to continue building this amazing country. So thank you so much for what you've just shared. And I want to pass it over to DeWitt. DeWitt, I just saw you this afternoon. You've been at it. You're all over the place promoting Emancipation Day, et cetera, and we appreciate your efforts as well. So, do you want to share with us how you got involved with Emancipation Day and the contributions that you've made to move this forward in terms of getting more people to recognize that day and to speak on it and to share it with others?
Well, Absolutely. Can you hear me okay?
Yes, I can.
All right, well, thank you. And let me just obviously take a moment to give thanks to the organizer for putting me in. I don't know who couldn't make it where I got the call, but that was a joke. But I am so grateful to just to be in this virtual room, to follow those two mighty women who did so many things that we will never be able to say thank you for. Things that may never make it in the history books, but so I just want to take a moment to thank them for their fierce advocacy for our community. Emancipation, Day 2016 is when I became intimately involved with it, um, and it definitely changed the projection of my life. Um, it, you know, Today you asked me how do I feel about it. Well, I'm very fortunate that we are now in those who are in Ontario. We are in the very first ever Emancipation Month across Ontario. So we don't have to keep looking back where we're having these conversations throughout the month, because it's such a heavy conversation. It requires so many people at the table. Anyone knows that if you're sitting down with 20 people in the dinner table, you're not going to get a chance to talk to everyone, right, in one setting. So, first and foremost, I felt like we deserve much more than one day to speak about it and to deliberate on it. So, but Emancipation Day has changed in two different levels of impact in my life. I will just say this: the most prominent thing that I feel in my spirit today, most undeniable thing that I have in my spirit today, is I connect and correlate 8/1, August 1st, with Exodus 8/1. And in Exodus 8/1, Moses went to the Pharaoh and said, let my people go so that they may go worship their God.
Mm-hmm.
And Deputy Mayor, he quoted the Bible. For those who may have known, he said, faith without works is dead. And it was our faith and our work, our tireless work, and praying through this thing and trusting God through this thing that got us through this thing. And so this is a time for us to make sure that what got us here will continue to keep us here and take us to the next level. And it was our faith, and it was the faith of our ancestors who were able to keep from developing, to truly buying in to what the oppressors wanted us to buy into. Just because there's a date on a piece of paper that said we were no longer someone's property, that didn't, that had we bought into the fact that we were someone's property, a piece of paper would have never changed that. And so, the steadfastness of our people who were able to see themselves as people and not be minimalized and forced to buy into this idea that they were property and that the animals had deserved better treatment than we did. It was the most inhumane, experiences that a human had to go through. And for us to be able to still maintain our dignity and our self-worth, I give thanks. I give thanks to the Creator. And so I want us to be able to reclaim our faith. And that story in the Bible in Exodus is actually a holiday for those of the Jewish faith. It's called Passover, and the whole world recognizes Passover. And and that is them paying tribute to their God and the deliverance that their God provided them through slavery. And we've been delivered from more than one Pharaoh upon Pharaoh upon Pharaoh upon Pharaoh, all at the same time. And we have been delivered. And so I'm hoping for the faith community to rally around Emancipation Day and around Emancipation Month and pay tribute to those who carried their faith through the valley of the shadow of death and were able to maintain their dignity so that we can, be in these places of prominence. And I just will say in closing, I think about the what after now, right? This Emancipation Act, the Emancipation, when it was passed in 1843, right? We're 34, excuse me. We're talking about there was a very hostile environment, and our people, our ancestors, they had to walk in that society, in a very hostile society, and they're able to find their way. They're able to find, and somehow, whether they had to conform or they had to, minimize their dreams, but they did it so that we can be where we are today. So all I'm focused on is, if I'm putting myself back to the first day that this bill and this act came into effect, what do we do for our people to check on our mental health, to check on how we feel as a people to each other and to those around us? Because I don't think we really had a lot of time to work on healing and repairing ourselves as a community, and as well as dealing with others.
Thank you very much for that, DeWitt. Some great thoughts. Some people may say that we already have Black History Month, and so what's the need of having another day to acknowledge another part of history, Emancipation Day? Rosemary, what would you say to that thought or that question?
Well, that was absolutely said to me more than once. That was among many, the long list of things that provided opposition to the idea that there should be a commemoration of August 1st as Emancipation Day. And frankly, some of you may be surprised, but there are people who just don't even want to accept the reality that there are Black people in this country who've made a contribution, that there's a Black history in this country. So you were working from a different basis than people in the Caribbean or people in the United States. We have to actually prove that we exist, or prove that we have existed over generations. And I say this because I know what I have been encountering, what I have been hearing. And that is just one small part of it, that we don't need more time. I know of people who wanted to do doctoral studies in Black history and were denied the opportunity because they were told there wasn't enough material from which they could possibly do so. So they went into other fields. And we still do not have, across this country, a required Black history curricula. And here, I'm not talking just about inserting some Black history in the history and social studies courses. I'm talking about history/representation, where Black people are shown, heard, seen, somehow represented in a regular and routine way. So until we have on that level, that kind of intrusion and inclusion and infusion of African anything, then and that has to be complemented on the other side with representation in the media, representation in all of our institutions. I'm so happy to see Deputy Mayor Steve Anderson. How wonderful, in Shelburne, of all places, right? Small town Shelburne. But that representation is relatively new. You yourself or someone said early on about some of the early Black residents of Shelburne. We are in a situation where we've been there in every community across this country, and yet we're just now having the firsts. The first, I was a first in many respects in different areas. So all that to say, sorry, we just have so much that needs to be done, that we're told that we don't need an Emancipation Day. Absolutely, I heard that. And I ignored that and pushed for it anyway, because sometimes you can help people understand, and sometimes you just move beyond them and do what you need to do.
Thank you for that, Rosemary. Senator Wanda, have you experienced or have you been told the same? I see Alethia, you've got your hands up. Do you want to?
Thanks, Queen. I was just acknowledging her comment with an applause.
Oh, that was a clap. Oh, not a hands up. Okay. Need my glasses. Senator, yes.
Yes, when I first introduced the bill S-255 to have Emancipation Day recognized, I was told, well, we already have so many days in Canada. Like, really?
Yeah.
So certainly we don't stop because of those things. Today, I've decided that I have to go back to a process I used to use when I was in academia. I created what I called the hate file, HATE. And I would put the hate mail in a particular file because it was just too difficult to keep it, sitting in my regular files.
Wow.
And there have been so many vile emails that have come just in the past few days that I've decided I have to start a hate file. And I'm going to keep these. I don't normally check my public email. My staff do, but they've all been away for different reasons this past week. So I've been monitoring my own email, and I am absolutely shocked. I don't believe it's the first time. I think they've been shielding me from some of these.
Yeah.
And I've seen them all. It could really bother your spirit if you allowed it to. But for me, it's strengthened. It has given me more strength. It has given me more resolve to keep going. And it makes me realize that much more how important this work is. If the little that we have at this point is making some Canadians that upset, then clearly we haven't done enough. And so there's much more that needs to be done. I've been asking the question, what's next? And I plan to try to respond to that question myself in terms of what will I do next? As I said, having Emancipation Day nationally recognized is just the first step. There's much, much more that we need to be doing. And I want to spend some time and some resources over the next couple of years, really looking at strategic ways to do that from my role in the Senate. So that's what my agenda is moving forward. One of the things that's happening in Nova Scotia, DeWitt talked about having August as Emancipation Month. And one of the things that I've seen that's happened in Nova Scotia is that there's so much interest and so much positive energy right from one end of the province to another, that they've already made August and July Emancipation months. So some activity started in July, the same thing last year. People really spread it over 2 months. I imagine that's going to go into 3 months because there's a lot of interest in doing some work in the schools.
Right.
And of course, school is not in August. So I see some work happening in June. I see some work happening in September. So just as we've been saying for years, we need to be doing Black history more than 1 month of the year. We certainly need to be doing work around Emancipation Day more than 1 day and more than 1 month. And so finding ways to make that happen, to legislate some of that, if we can find some ways to, try to make this mandatory, then I think that would be really important next steps for us to be engaging in.
Mm-hmm. That's interesting. I want to acknowledge as well Anton Dilich, OPP, Anton Dilich. I didn't recognize you at the beginning. So hello. And hi. I just also want to kind of open up the conversation. And, I'm kind of wondering, for you that are supporters of the Black community and a part of even this conversation, how do you feel that you can personally benefit from having recognized these days and understanding more of the history of Black Canadians? How do you think that has, I'm not sure, encouraged, inspired, enlightened? What does it do for you to learn about these this past? Anton, you're shaking your head, so I'm gonna.
Yes. Thank you so much for the opportunity. And I think you just said it. I'm enlightened. I'm inspired. I think this opportunity to learn, to hear from Senator Bernard, from Rosemary, from DeWitt, to hear from so many of you about some history, some personal perspectives. direction. It is truly a privilege to be able to share the time with you. And Senator, I think you said more than 1 month, more than 1 day. And I think, Black history should be celebrated, recognized, reflected on, not just in February, in March, in April, in May, June, July, every single month of the year. And in particular for our youth to, as you said, have more in the curriculum in our schools and start from very young ages, so that the change starts from a young age, and maybe the opportunity for even more success comes sooner, for us all. So for me personally, I'm inspired, and this is something that I would hope to be a part of more frequently and have these discussions. So thank you.
Thank you very much for that. And, Sylvia, I hope you don't mind me calling you Sylvia, but because you feel like family. We've been on so many calls and conversations. I just want to, also pose that question to you. What do you get out of learning about the history of Blacks and in particular, a day like today that we're celebrating, Emancipation Day? What does it do for you, and how do you think, and why do you think that we need to encourage more of these conversations? And
yeah, thanks for bringing me into that. I was struck and sort of chuckled when the senator talked about, well, we already have a lot of special acknowledgement days in Canada, and I have had those conversations. I've heard those words when people talk about a day to mark ABC. I think they're an opportunity for education and awareness. So if it really means that the general public has an opportunity to learn more about Canadian history, Ontario history, Dufferin history, then have the special day. It doesn't take anything away from other societies, other groups in our community to have that acknowledgement and have that learning opportunity. And I just look at it as truly a learning opportunity to say, this is what August 1st means to Canadians, not to Canadians of Black Canadians. It is to Canadians. It is our history, and it is, I think, very important for all of us as Canadians to have that shared common knowledge of what was happening 100, 200 years ago in our communities. And I think, without delving into other parts of some of the things that we're learning about Indigenous abuse and what has happened in communities, I think it's really important for us to take the opportunity to acknowledge, learn from it, and make sure that we become better communities as a result.
yeah, thank you for that. That's a great response. And I would like to allow Rosie to share. Rosie, I know that you've been placing some comments in the chat. It would be wonderful to actually see you if you can come on screen, and if you want to share any comments or any thoughts. Hey, Rosie.
Hello.
Hi.
Hi. This is a phenomenal opportunity to be here. Thank you, Alethia, for inviting me. I am very encouraged by what I'm hearing. I know that the work that needs to be done isn't work to be done by one particular group, that we all have to participate in it. And I'm really, really encouraged by this. So thank you to everybody who's on the ground doing work in this field. I understand that the knowledge needs to be shared from the basic educational level, from young kids understanding how do we interact with each other. And so I am very, very encouraged by everything that I'm hearing that's being shared right now. So thank you to everybody for the work that you're doing.
Thank you very much, Rosie, thank you so much for that. Alethia, is that your hands up this time?
Yes, my hand is up this time. I actually wanted to comment on, a statement that Senator Bernard kind of touched on, but she didn't dive into it. And it's around some of the hate and, some of the challenges that still exist when it comes to, anti-Black racism. And, oftentimes, I pause and, question, do we need to go there? Do we need to have these hard conversations? But I think the reality is this forum is an opportunity for us to have those hard conversations, because we'll see major milestones and achievements such as Black History Month proclamations. We'll see the achievements such as this Emancipation Day, recognition across Canada, and think that we've moved the needle far ahead. But the reality is we have not. And until we're able to have those critical conversations, those uncomfortable conversations around the things that still exist in our community, our allies or supporters can't help us in the fight. We ourselves can't, champion the cause and move forward, because we're sitting here thinking that we've actually had major accomplishments. Yes, I'm not undermining the work that we've done to get here, but there is still so much work to be done. And there are hard truths, uncomfortable things that are happening to Black Canadians still that we need to address in order for us to move forward together.
Thank you for that, Alethia. And I just want to say hello to Karen. I'm going to say your names. There's Jen, there's Jennifer, there's Leanne, there's Jennifer Payne, and then there's Stella, Lori Kerr, Barb. It says H. Andrews, Bruce, Ken, Lynn, Jenny, Timothy, Richard, Shelley. Please feel free to put your hands up to share your thoughts if you have any questions. We want to hear from you. Let's see, there's Demore, Sheldon, Patricia, Sherilyn, Craig, Andrew, Lynn, Lori Kerr. If you have any thoughts, please go ahead and share. Put your hands up.
Leanne has raised her hand. Perhaps Leanne can chime in.
This has been wonderful. I've been in the Shelburne area for less than 10 years, and I've seen it change dramatically and wonderfully. But I also want to say how delighted I am to see Wanda Thomas Bernard. Wanda and I collaborated in a small project 12 years ago at the Conference of the Association of Ontario Health Centers. And it was a storytelling event, and 5 different racialized ethnic communities. It was called 5 Chairs. And Wanda was one of those. And I remember that also, and Wanda, maybe you'll remember as well, that Mitch Miyagawa premiered his film called A Sorry State, and was about apology and apologies. And 2 of the communities represented on the 5 chairs had already been apologized to by the federal government. Yesterday, I heard you talk about a similar apology for Afro-descendant people in Canada. And I would love to hear from you what you feel would be the benefit of that. What is the value of that you see?
Lovely to see you again, Leanne, and thanks for that reminder about that event. I absolutely remember it.
I should send you that photo of the 5 chairs.
Oh, yes, please do. I think back to July 9th, when the Prime Minister apologized to the descendants of the No. 2 Construction Battalion.
Yeah.
It was so amazing to see the community response to that apology. And one of the things that we talk about is the fact, yes, there's never been an apology to African Canadians. There certainly has not been an apology about slavery. That apology was specifically to the No. 2 Construction Battalion. And the response to that was very powerful. I spoke at that event, and one of the things I said was, this is a form of reparations. This is the first apology. We are owed more. Well, the crowd went ballistic because they all agreed, and there were so many people. People are still talking about that because there's this pent-up desire, demand for an apology. We are owed an apology. And that's part of why I've been getting all of these vile emails, because there are a lot of people that believe we shouldn't have an apology, that we don't need an apology. And of course, we know an apology without action means nothing. So I think this government has been doing some work, doing some good work, you know, some funding, having Black Canadians specifically in budget, named in budgets. That's never happened before. Those things are all good, but they don't replace the need for an official apology, and they don't replace the need for specific reparations. And reparations aren't just about money. So those conversations need to happen. They worked 3 years to get to the apology to the number 2 construction battalion. Wow. It was 3 years in the making. I hope we don't take another 3 years to get to an apology for the institution of slavery, but we do need an apology. And we do need legislative actions that will address what we're dealing with now, the anti-Black racism that we're dealing with now, that has its roots in the slavery. I don't think there's enough clear understanding of that.
Right. Yeah.
And what's needed. And the other thing I really firmly believe that an apology would help with individual and collective healing. Healing for the atrocities of the past and the multi-generational trauma and the vicious cycle of the violence of racism and how that impacts us when we internalize it.
Right. Yeah. Exactly.
And so healing is certainly needed as well.
Thanks so much, Wanda.
Thank you very much. Andrew, your hands are up, then there's DeWitt. Go after Andrew. Andrew, please.
Yeah, good evening.
Good evening.
This is wonderful to hear, to be a part of this discussion, and this is awesome. It's I've been listening to quite a few speakers and the issues brought forth. It's incredible and touching my heart. One of the things that I would like to address is for our MP, our MPP, our mayor, our council, right across Canada, to make it a deliberate effort in the House of Commons when the debates are going on, that these issues are brought to the forefront, not just Black History Day or Emancipation Day or Black History Month or those kind of things. We need a constant mouthpiece to the nation, that should be talked about, because there's a pain in our community. The last speaker spoke about the trauma that is going on, and the pain in the community is not being talked about and recognized. And the ask for an apology goes a long way, but without the constant mouthpiece in our MP, because we vote for you too. We are a part of the electorate, and you are our mouthpiece to make these issues front for us. And not only for us, for all of Canada, for the people in our society, because the hate that we face is coming from somewhere and someone. And who is speaking to it? Sometimes we not only should wait until an issue arises before we address it. We should always lead with the issues that we are aware of, not when they pop up. But I'm touched by what I'm hearing, and that is for the MP, MPP, the council, the mayor, all our elected officials to carry those words forward, because everyone in our community will benefit when the entire community is whole. Thank you.
Thank you for sharing, Andrew. We really appreciate your thoughts. DeWitt, your hands was up, and Rosemary, did you have something that you wanted to add? DeWitt?
Thank you. There was a few very important points that I wanted to just address, and I've just been taking notes of. First of all, from our dear senator, you know, that hate mail, that's something that we have to take serious. You know, America declared white national terrorism as the biggest domestic threat to society. And you know, I've been spending a lot of time with our brothers and sisters in Buffalo who have been healing and trying to recover from, you know, that racist mass murdering that took place in their neighborhood, in our community. And it is real, and those threats are real, and we have to have a system and an awareness of protection of our community, because that hate drives people to do terrible, violent things, and we've seen that over and over in history. Hate that continues that we continue to have to face. So I hope that you take every one of those letters personally and take it serious, so that maybe we can, you know, put it in the hands of our law enforcement to in fact make sure that we can stop any racial attacks, because we know no community is safe. So I just ask that you just take it serious, and that we are aware of it. I heard people talk about where's the next level, and you know, we have to expand this conversation to our brothers and sisters and our neighbors who share this city and our communities with, right? You don't want to continue to keep speaking to, you know, a few allies from the white community, and then we need to expand it into the Chinese community. You know, we need to expand it into the Sikh community, and into the, you know, African and Arabic communities, because white supremacy, white colonial systems have impacted their families as well. And, you know, the Black communities feel that same kind of racist experience when they walk into a store that's owned by a Chinese, you know, member of our community and whatnot. So we have to understand that racism has found its way not into even other communities, but even in our own homes. And we have to be aware of it. Certain things, when we treat each other, we have to be aware that this is residual from that trauma, and we have to be able to identify it. And you know, we're looking, and forgiveness, of course, is important, but we have to be able to forgive each other. And that's what, you know, emancipation really is all about. It's about freeing yourself, you know, from, you know, disagreements, and freeing yourself from, you know, the attacks and all the different things that create bondage, that make it difficult for us to live and enjoy our lives. So I just want to, you know, and that's really important purpose and why we want to take this conversation into the churches, because if you can take it into the churches, there's different cultures that all follow the same faith, and to be able to reach them and to speak to, you know, those in the Chinese community, those in the Sikh community, you know, they'll be able to take that message of unity, of equality into their homes and into their business networks and truly become allies. So we need to focus on building up our allies. And, you know, this month we have so many different programs in place, and so many actual different tools for people to use in their own community, that we can have those difficult conversations that we talked about having, you know, and taking it a step further and really getting down to the, you know, to the essence of what this is. And we don't battle against flesh, we battle against principalities. And it's important for us to to understand that what we're dealing with is beyond just something that a piece of paper can change, but it's going to involve us having real human conversations with each other to be able to make the future a more equitable place for all of our children.
Thank you very much, DeWitt. And
I'm sorry, last thing, just in case I don't get another chance, if I may, please. There's all these other months that do commemorate and honor the contributions of Canadians of Hispanic descent and Indigenous descent, and we can find Black history there, right? So, there's Black history in the Hispanic community and the Indigenous community. So we can find ways to continue to talk about our contributions, even as we step outside of the Black History Month and the Emancipation Months, because our history is embedded within all of those other cultures. Thank you.
Thank you very much, DeWitt. I'm looking at the screen and I can't help but, I always get so excited and just inspired by looking at all the different people that make up this community, that make up this country, and really and truly make up the world. We have a beautiful opportunity in this lifetime to be a part of making positive change. And, as simple as it may sound, when we talk about, love is the key, love heals and love is the answer. It really is, because the bottom line is that we are all children of this earth. We are all children of the world. We all belong here. We don't know how we got here, but we're all children of the world. And I've said over and over, just like in a family, you've got various members of the family. You've got many children, you've got aunties, uncles, et cetera, and everyone is important. Everyone needs to have a place called home, a place where they are able to thrive, a place where they can receive support and that human connection that we all need in order for us to, live the way that we're supposed to live. And so looking at our screen right now, we've got people from different backgrounds, people who are different looking, people with different experiences. We have to just continue to encourage each other and remind each other that we belong together. We're part of the human race. And we're not going to get anywhere until we learn to really respect each other as human beings and see each other as our brother's keeper, and make it a point to look after each other, make it a point to be a little bit more empathetic, and to understand that we will not always have it right and we will not be perfect. But the fact is, we're always a work in progress, and allow for others to make mistakes, but allow for ourselves as well to teach and to share, be patient with others, about our history, our experiences. Because really and truly, when we come together, when we learn to appreciate what each and every single one of us has to bring to the table, when we understand our history, other people's experiences, it makes us a little bit more humane and it brings us together. And this is the only way we're going to move forward as a country. Let's work on whatever it takes to eliminate hate, to eliminate that spirit of hate, and to understand where there's hate, there's destruction. And we don't want to go there. The fact that we are now speaking about the emancipation, realities of emancipation of Black slaves, et cetera, the history of Black people, it shows that we are opening up our hearts and we're learning to appreciate and embrace each other. And this is vital again. So I really do appreciate the fact that you, Alethia, Steve, and the team have made this effort, because we could all be out somewhere suntanning or whatever, having a good time, but we're making this effort to say that this day, recognizing this experience is important. And by sharing how we feel, by giving each other hope, to say that we are with you, we are walking this road with you, we appreciate your experiences. This is the way to go. And we have to continue doing this for all communities. Because again, when we start to look at each other as human beings and understand that we all feel the same, we are all one family. I think that is the thing that's going to motivate us and keep us together. And that, again, very simple but powerful word called love. Love, when we defined it, that is really the answer. That is really the answer to where we need to go and to be able to deal with the challenges that we have at this time. But we're going to do it. We're going to step up, and we're going to look forward to how we can make things better. What are the next steps? Steve, I'm going to pass this over to you and anyone else who wants to share any of their thoughts, any words of encouragement, because again, we are in this together. We are in this together. We are in this together. And COVID has taught us that we need each other. We need each other. We are one family, and we need to take care of each other. When we do that, we never feel alone, and it fills our hearts. So anyone else who wants to share anything, and you know, if not, then I'm going to pass it over to you, Steve. If there's anything that you want to share, Rosemary, Senator Wanda, and anyone else, please go ahead and take the floor.
Well, I will, if no one else will, simply because, you know, I think, you know, we want to also pay homage to the emancipation story around the world. And that is a very important, I think, part of us finding that unity, finding that common denominator, and finding out, you know, how all roads lead back to Africa, and you know, and what little things do separate us from actually being family. So, you know, this Emancipation Month, we are, you know, telling the stories of those who have been emancipated all across the world. And this is why I brought up Latin America, because, you know, Brazil has the largest percentage of people of African descent than outside of Africa. So we're talking about, you know, we really are scattered around the world, and, you know, we've all suffered, you know, terribly, and we're all trying to find ourselves. So, you know, there's a lot of hope there. There's a lot of fellowship there when we look outside of our borders and see that we are dominant, we are prominent, and that we have been placed around this world to be ambassadors of love, because we have shown love. When you show love to an enemy, that is the deepest and the most genuine form of love. And so we have shown that time in and time again. So I ask that we show that love to each other. I ask that we give the young people the teaching that they need to know who they are, whether it's based out of a biblical book or it's based out of books like this. Teach me about Garvey, right? Because if we're not talking about the Honorable Marcus Messiah Garvey, we're not talking about what was created in the 1920s, then we are missing out on one of the greatest examples of Black unity and Black economic power, right? So this is a time for us to look into our communities, find out where the voids are, find out how we can come together, using allies around us to strengthen our communities, to fill the voids, and make sure that history doesn't continue to repeat ourselves, and that our children have an opportunity to truly compete in this world, and that we're able to pass on something tangible to them. And, you know, this year, for those who haven't seen it, and Gwen, I know you saw it, you know, this is something tangible that we can hold and pass on. And this is Bill 75 that had a first, second, and third reading in one day and received royal assent the next day, has become law for Emancipation Month in Ontario. And we look forward to being able to, you know, truly spread it across Canada, spread it across the Caribbean islands and the UK, and really strengthen our community around the world. So I appreciate everyone. I am honored to share this space with you all. Gwen, you did an amazing job, of course, you know, inspiring and continuing to lead the charge and making sure our youth have a voice in our community. So thank you all, and I hope to see you at some of the events. There is a very important Marcus Garvey movie that is being screened in Brampton and in Toronto on the 13th and 14th. So I hope that you're all able to go to emancipationmonth.com or follow us on social media, Emancipation Month, and find the dates of that very special movie screening happening next week. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much, DeWitt. Anybody else has anything they'd like to share? Senator Wanda? And
yes.
then I have a short thing I'd like to share after as well. Yeah.
Just very briefly, I know time is running out, and I'm actually in Nova Scotia, so it's an hour later here.
Okay.
I want to say I really enjoyed the video montage at the beginning.
Yes.
It was so nice to hear those voices, and I want to do a special shout out to young Noah. So if any of you know who he is, please let him know that his words really touched my heart this evening. Thank you.
That's so
And
nice.
it's been wonderful to be here with you this evening.
Thank you. I'm going to share with you a poem. I'm not sure if any of you know someone by the name of Dr. Reuben Hurricane Carter. The movie The Hurricane was named after, that's basically his life story starring Denzel Washington. This was a poem that he introduced me to, and it's called The Cold Within. 6 humans trapped by happenstance in bleak and bitter cold. Each one possessed a stick of wood, or so the story's told. Their dying fire in need of logs, but the first man held his back, for of the faces around the fire, he noticed one was black. The next man, looking across the way, saw one not of his church and couldn't bring himself to give the fire his stick of birch. The third one sat in tattered clothes. He gave his coat a hitch. Why should his log be put to use to warm the idle rich? The rich man just sat back and thought of the wealth he had in store and how to keep what he had earned from the lazy, shiftless poor. And the black man's face bespoke revenge as the fire passed from his sight. For all he saw in his stick of wood was a chance to spite the white. The last man of this fallen group did not accept for gain, giving only to those who gave was how he played the game. Their logs held tight, all of them holding on to it. Their logs held tight in death's still hands was proof of human sin. They did not die from the cold without. They died from the cold within. Goosebumps. It's powerful. So we want to do the opposite of that. We want to be generous, to look after each other, to participate, to give, to love, and keep us together, keep us looking after each other. So I wanted just to share that. I thought that was a powerful poem. Thank you, Alethia. I give it back to you and Steve.
Perfect. Thank you, Gwen. At this time, I'd like to hand it over to Deputy Mayor Anderson to do his closing remarks, and then I'll do my portion.
Geez, I mean, after hearing Gwen speak, I think we could just all log off. But I will take the opportunity that is given and just thank Gwen herself. And I know that Alethia will do that in earnest. Certainly all the panel members and those who have stayed on for the hour and a half plus to join us in this very important conversation. One of the key words that I heard throughout was love, and I totally agree with that. Because when we love and we respect each other, if you think about it in a relationship, you love your partner and you see that they're hurt, they've been done wrong, either by your actions or others. And you certainly want to make sure that you either apologize, as we talk about the value of an apology, right? Because that means something. It's an acknowledgement of what that person has gone through. And if you love and you care and respect that person, that's something that at a very minimum that we'd want to do. And so when we talk about a value of apology, it's really that what we're speaking about is that basic acknowledgement that a group of people have been wronged, and we want to make sure that that doesn't happen again. It's that same love, quite frankly, that I found in the small town of Shelburne. You heard Rosemary point that out, that allowed people to see past the obvious and give me an opportunity to serve that community. And so there's no question that love is important. Let me take the opportunity, I believe our school board trustee may be on as well, Lynn Topping, and if she is, I want to give her a shout out as well and thank her and her husband, Ken, for being part of this discussion. I also want to shout out DeWitt, as humble as he is, certainly he's been a trailblazer in the fight. He's been instrumental in getting the park in Brampton renamed to Emancipation Park. And so I just want to congratulate him in his tireless work. This was a learning opportunity, certainly for all of us. And much of the stuff that we heard today, quite frankly, I didn't know myself until I started to research and understand the giants in the work itself. The work of justice, and I'm going to use this word, righteousness, is not easy. And we heard from the senator and Rosemary speaking about that. There was a person that was hung on the cross for righteousness. Let's put this into perspective. Okay, Gwen's going to know this when I say this, that there was a commercial that I watched way back in the day, and some of you may be young enough or old enough to remember this. It was a commercial with the United States Marines, and it was saying that they were looking for a few good men. Well, let me say this. There's another army that is looking for a few good men and women, and that is our community. Who is going to stand up and serve despite the fact that lives may be lost, egos may be bruised, that people may be attacked and dishonored? Who is going to stand up for the cause of righteousness and justice? Because if we don't, then those who have paid the ultimate sacrifice, in Canada, we love to remember those who paid the ultimate sacrifice, they would have died in vain, period. So we need brave men and women. There's another army that needs brave men and women to stand up and to continue to move the needle forward. So I want to applaud DeWitt and Gwen and the senator and Rosemary. Quite frankly, they should be on a $20 bill, for crying out loud, as we talk about honoring our ancestors and giving people their flowers before they pass away. There was a commercial I watched back in the day, not a commercial, a cartoon, was G.I. Joe. And it said, knowing is half the battle. And it was only half the battle because it's one thing to have knowledge, it's the next thing to execute on that knowledge.
Yeah.
That's why it was only half the battle, because there's action that is required. And so I hope in my closing remarks here that we take the knowledge that we received today and we act upon it. And I'll leave it at that. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor Anderson. And what a perfect way to end the night. You touched on a few gems. You touched on love. The other thing that I would love to touch on again, you touched about the Army. You know, one of the key things is for us is community. And we're seeing that in full display right here. We have community leaders right across Dufferin County who have been at the table, you know, championing the cause for equity, piloting events and doing amazing things to ensure that our community continues to be inclusive. So I want to thank each of these leaders who are here with us tonight, and those of us who are not on the call tonight. There are so many individuals like our mayor who have been instrumental in doing some great work. So big shout out to everyone, Jennifer Moore, Jennifer Payne, and we had Barb from FTP also on the line. Thank you for showing up. Thank you, Trustee Topping and family. The DCCBA board members, you have been doing your part to make sure that we're able to have these crucial conversations. So thank you for your leadership and support in the community. Yourself, Deputy Mayor Anderson, for being the leader that you are so that we can have these crucial, very crucial conversations and putting some of those policies in place so that we can celebrate and proclaim Black History Month, Emancipation Day, right here in Dufferin County and the town of Shelburne. Last but not least, I'd like to thank Rosemary Sadler, for your groundwork in getting us here today, sharing your knowledge and your history with us. Senator Bernard, thank you so much for your leadership. And of course, Duet, Deputy Mayor Anderson acknowledged you again for all of the great things that you're doing right here, not just in Ontario, but across the border as well.
Yeah.
Gwen, you're an amazing host. Thank you for all of the amazing work that you're doing. You're the community connector. You're the great connector who's able to find our young people, find our mentors, find our leaders, and put them in spaces where they can all thrive. So thank you for the amazing work that you are doing. At this time, we are going to close, and I would like to invite you to enjoy this video or PowerPoint presentation rather of some of the amazing work that our local artists curated for us in celebration of Emancipation Day. The theme for the event was titled Freedom, which is very fitting for this event. So I encourage you to sit back, relax, and enjoy. For those of you who are local, I encourage you to visit Town Hall when it is open and enjoy in person the full event. So what you're going to see here is a full collection of the work that these artists curated for us. Thank you, everyone. That concludes our presentation for tonight. Please feel free to share some comments in the chat. We will definitely review the comments later. OPP Jelich, thank you so much for your support and for your greetings. Bruce Walkinshaw, I see you're on the call. Thank you for your support. Leanne, Stella, so many community champions. Jen Moore, Jen Payne, thank you so much.